And we're learning ways of connection. And a lot of what we're finding is people are feel more connected online. But more importantly, what we know to be true is folks feel connected in the moment, in the heat of the movement on the ground, doing something tangible that they can really feel. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And so we oftentimes don't have to worry when there's a heightened moment of movement locally and nationally, especially what we're seeing right now in Memphis and in Atlanta. How many of you have been kind of following what's going on? I see heads nodding. Movement is, the struggle continuously continues. And I'm in my comfort zone, y'all, for mine, I want to be respectful to the people online. So oftentimes I want to be, y'all heard me say that I want to be right there with you, shoulder to shoulder, making real connections. But for the sake of the folks online, I'm going to stand up. And I believe in our body has so much language in it. And for those of you that can, I'm going to ask you to stand up with me, if that's okay, that are here present, if you feel comfortable enough to stand. Our body and our body language has so much that we offer even before we begin to speak. And so with that ideal in mind, we want to open up, not only by just saying you are welcome here. You are welcome here. Here's another. On this day, in this moment in time, regardless to what anybody has ever told you, you are welcome here. And so I just want you to feel that in your body. We believe in centering as we welcome people into a space, because how we create space is so important that we want people to feel welcome. And not just feel it up here in our minds as folks use those words of welcome, but feel it in our bodies. And so one of the things that we have found as People's Justice Project is intentionally centering ourselves in welcome. And so I'm going to model that for you. My name is Tammy Fournier Alsada. I am a native of Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised here in the city. And so when I'm in the streets and I say these streets, I really feel that in my spirit because this is my city. Welcome, my brother. Welcome, hey, welcome. Good to see you again. I was born and raised here. I was born in the 60s. So I'm a 60s baby, born into, and if you think about the 60s, anybody know anything about history, I was born into the space of the ideal of movement, especially as a Black body. Born into a Black family in the heat of the civil rights movement. And so everything that I am is about movement. That's why movement is so important to me. Because when I think about liberation, I think about the ability to move. To be free to move, to create liberation for myself. Now, through a lot of development and training, I've learned that the creation of movement is important to who we are as we build and think about organization. But before organization is Tammy, the human being. And so I'm going to ask you to think about what I'm sharing and allow your body to get loose. Just kind of, if you will, just get loose with me. Some of us got rhythm, some of us don't. I don't have that. I can pretend real good though. But just get loose. There you go, my brother. Roll your shoulders back. Your body carries so much. And so in centering, we center in our length first. And why length is so important, because it automatically reminds us to stand up a little taller. There you go. Hold your head up a little higher. Feel your body. Begin to feel. What are you feeling? Aching your lower back and your lower back, maybe. Yeah, I see somebody nodding. Maybe your shoulders are feeling a little tighter. Lean into that. It's okay. Everything is accepted here and has a right to be here. Even our uncomfortableness, even the stress of the day has a right to be here. And so lean into your left, knowing that in that contradiction of maybe the pain, you still know who you are and you can stand up tall and hold your head up high, know who you are. And so just look around the room at all this limb, collective limb. Yeah, look at someone's eyes standing next to you. See their length and that dignity in that length as they stand up a little tall. Yeah, that's it. And so the first dimension of centering, we center on length. Our second dimension is our width. And so as I say width, keep your length, but begin to just spread out, spread your chest bone out, and get a little wide. And you got, my brother, in your length, get a little wider. Yes, get a little wider. And why we center on our width is because our width reminds us that we have a right to take up space. I got a right to take up space. I got a right to be here. I got a right to liberation and respect and a right to my dignity. I got a right to be seen and heard and valued. That's our width. So remember our length and our width. Allow that to fill you up. The third dimension of our centering is our width. And so as you your length, our depth. So as we're holding our length and all this width, just kind of lean back a little bit. It's our depth. It's our depth. Feel that depth. As you lean back, you kind of feel those little knots in your back kind of loosen up a little bit, don't you? I feel mine kind of pop in my lower back. Yes. Why is our depth so important? Our depth reminds us of all those things that came before us, those things that are behind us. It calls in our ancestors and those that paved the way before us. Those are all those things behind us. That's in our depth, the depth of who I am, the depth of who's poured into me, the depth of what I've learned and I've seen and I've heard. And so in my length and my width, my depth was centered. And why do we even center? Centering is important because it allows us to set our intentions. Y'all feel me? Our intentions. As I'm setting my intentions, I want to remember that I am somebody and I stand up a little taller. I want to remind myself of my width and I have a right to take up space. And then at least I forget. And even though it may seem hard, even right now, My death reminds me of there are folks that came before me that overcame these things. And yes, it's a damn shame that we are still having to fight some of those battles again and again and again and again. But we know that we have won. And we will win. And we can win. And everything we need is available. It's available to us because of that history. Y'all feel me? Yes. And so the final dimension, as we're in our limp and our death, our width and our depth, is our commitments. And so just leaning in a little forward. Just leaning in a little forward with your life. Our commitment. What am I committed to? What am I up to for the sake of what, Amos? Sake of what? What am I up to for the sake of what? Why did I get in my car, however you got here, or click onto my computer tonight? Many of us did it because we are committed to something. More knowledge, more understanding, more connection, more ways to lend my gifts and my talents to the movement. Feel me? And so take that in. Remember to breathe. Loosen up your jaw a little bit and get free in that commitment. Get free in it. And yes, the world will bend your shoulders over and make you feel like there is no hope. But tonight, if nothing else happens, I hope that we are able, as the People's Justice Project, to remind you that there is hope, that you are powerful, and we can do all things together. Thank you guys for centering. You can take your seat and get comfortable. You can take the airmen if you would.
What?
Be my wingman on clicks.
Yes, ma'am. Whatever you say, Miss Fanny.
Thank you so much. So again, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. We apologize for folks online and for the folks that are present for starting a little late, but one of the things that you will learn about me is my relationship to time is real crazy. Actually, it's in a training manual with an organization that I do trainings with. Just to tell you a little bit about me and why I say that often. Let me also say I have a whole lot of respect for time as well. I'm learning a new relationship to it. I share with you guys that I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised here in Columbus. Born in the 60s to a family that had migrated from down near Nashville, Tennessee, in a small town called Promised Land, Tennessee. And please look it up. It is my family's history and something that I am so proud of and what created me to be who I am. Promised Land, Tennessee was the first Black town founded in Dixon County after slavery by freed Black slaves. Former slaves. One of the men that helped to found the town was my great-great-grandfather. His name was John Nesbitt. He was enslaved on a plantation in Dixon County. He escaped slavery and walked from Tennessee to Kentucky to join the U.S. colored troops. Grandpa John fought in the U.S. colored troops in the 4th Regiment. He loaded cannonballs into cannons in the Civil War. One of those cannons backfired and injured him in his side. And so after the war was over, and that's why knowledge is so important to me. because I think about my grandfather often, that he had enough sense to know that he had a right to something after the war and being injured. And so for 10 years, he fought for his pension from the war, and he got it. And he helped to invest and build that first black town that still exists today. It's on the Civil War trails. If you look up the Civil War trails, it tells his story. Not only did he escape slavery, but his brother, my uncle, Arch Nesbitt, also fought in the 16th Regiment. And so those are the shoulders I'm standing on. The beauty of who my family is from the time I was born, I was told that story. Now, pieces of it, like the regiment and all that stuff, my family didn't know. But they knew the story of John Nesbitt and his contribution to this country. And so that's why I'm here. That's who I am. I understand as Black people, and part of our experiences being Black in America is oftentimes we think of our history and our beginnings from slavery. And we don't know that there's a whole bunch of, we know, but we don't have access to the additional parts of that history. So although my great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War, he also knew that he was from Africa. He knew that he was a Fulani African from Africa, actually in Sokoto, Nigeria. And he held on to that. So that's what allows me to stand up a little bit taller. Y'all feel me? That's what allows me to stand up a little bit taller. I share that story because with all that history of who I am, in the late 80s and early 90s, during the crack epidemic, I got addicted to crack cocaine. That's part of who I am. And I went to prison. And I served 3 years of incarceration in prison. That's part of who I am. Why that's important is because in prison, knowing and think about, when I think about centering, that's why I do that, is because when I think about my ancestors, I went to prison knowing that I was somebody. Knew that I came from a long line of people, powerful people that knew they were somebody, but I landed in prison. And prison, imagine being stripped of all that dignity, being subjected to power over day after day after day. In prison is where I learned that the power of organized people, now I didn't have this language then, but I knew that if people came together, we could fight our oppressors. We could demand some things. We could stand in our dignity. And so in prison, I began to be introduced to what we now know as what I later learned was organizing, which coming home from prison, I came home from prison in 1997, late 97, 98. Because of all the organizing in prison, I was asked to help form the first Citizens Advisory Board in Franklin County, where formerly incarcerated people had an opportunity to share their experiences and to weigh in on policy. And so fast forward, what was it, Aaron? It was about 2014.
No, remember I first met you?
Yeah, about 2014, maybe.
No, it was like
late 13.
13, 12.
Movement was happening in our city, Columbus, Ohio, but also around the country. Mike Brown had happened, but even before Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin had happened. And I think that's where I first saw Aaron as Trayvon Martin. We kept showing up in spaces, not really understanding why, but knowing that that connection of showing up in spaces like we're doing tonight had to be about something more. And so this evening, we're going to get into what was that something more. I'm going to take time to share with you about who People's Justice Project is, why we came together, what we're up to for the sake of what. And my favorite part about doing this presentation is to share with you what we want. Can you go back to the first slide?
Yes, ma'am.
What we won. And we oftentimes don't talk about that, do we? Do we? I'm gonna pause for a minute to just kind of hear from some of the people in the room. Why do you think that is? Why don't we talk as much about what we won as we do about what we are fighting and what is wrong in our day-to-day lives and in this country? Anybody? My brother, I see you contemplating. Well,
Yeah, because I'm really bad at it myself when it comes to talk about what we've been or what we have won. Actually, I have a co-founder, Abraham, who was here last time. He was probably the best because he told me to really, like, you know, take your time.
Right.
Like, even when we first started our community serve, you know, I didn't think it was as impactful as it could be. I'm always looking to and put that pressure on to build something bigger and better. And I think that comes with just being from like an oppressed people.
come on now.
I want full liberation, not a piece of it. And when I look at these type of, you know, things that we have produced, I just see it as a part, but it's not the full piece, which is what I'm looking for. So for me personally, I say I'm just really hard on myself when it comes to it. I was looking for like the community validation when I get it, so I just want something bigger.
I feel you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Hard on ourselves. Racing on to the next thing. Not slowing down enough to look around and notice what I've already done. Not slowing down enough to even celebrate it. Or give ourselves grace in, maybe I didn't do all the things that I put on the chart paper, but damn it, I did some shit. Pardon my friends in here, keep it real. But we do that to ourselves. But because we have learned to uphold the oppression. And we don't even know it sometimes that we're upholding the oppression. Thank you. Thank you. Let's hear from somebody else.
Maybe being reminded of your mistakes somehow, because there's some around and there's some future for us. So it's difficult to celebrate when you are still being
That's real. It's real. Even today, Aaron and I were just talking about before we started how the oppression comes at us so often and so fast that oftentimes we have to look away. Or we have to keep running because we know we must. Yeah. I thank God for the introduction of trauma and healing in this movement. Because for years, remember, I'm a 60s baby. I've been running for a long damn time. I've been running. And not till recently did I begin to look at what the toll it takes. Not understanding that absorbing all that secondhand trauma when we watch the videos and we read the headlines and we show up time and time after time after time for justice. The trauma that takes, not realizing that looking at another space, another family, when they lost someone to violence. And for us in the Black community, not only police violence, but violence in our community. Looking at the families that are hopeless and what that does to our bodies. And so I'm grateful for the fact that we have realized that we must slow down and heal and name those things in a way that we look for the ways to heal and the tools to deal with the things that we must carry in suppression. That's real talk. And so part of one of the tools that I've learned is one of the things that we can do that's available to us is to celebrate. It's to come together, not just to learn and to train and develop and strategize, but to break bread together, to smoke a cigarette together, to have a, whatever it is that we do. To love on our children. Look over there, y'all, to look at that little baby, so innocent and pure. To everybody's face like so. When you look at something about the joy of new, beautiful new life, a beautiful baby with all the hopes and dreams and possibilities, a beautiful cuddly warm puppy, or your cat at home that just comes and curls up around you. Whatever that thing is that brings you joy, that's celebrating. If it's eating your favorite meal, going to your favorite park, one of my favorite things is to go out in nature. Take my shoes off and walk in the grass, look at the flowers growing. Run away to the ocean. Celebrate. So let's lean into the slides. Again, my relationship to time, I can take up space as y'all see. And I learned that I can reclaim my time. And so I reclaimed a little bit of time, and I want to get into this. People's Justice Project. We were founded in the summer of 2015 to organize people affected by mass incarceration and police brutality into a political force. And we mean that, a political force. With the emergence of the Black Lives Matter movement in August of 2014, the role in Ohio transformed into guiding the ever-growing social movement that was happening around the country, but also here in Ohio. People's Justice Project, we are part of a larger network of grassroots organizations such as Freedom Bloc here in Ohio, the Juvenile Justice Coalition, Black and Queer Intersectional Collaborative, Black Freedom Collective, and the Columbus Safety Collective, all here in Ohio. Next slide, Aries. What are our goals? What are we up to? You heard me say for the sake of what? This is our sake of what? Most folks say mission and vision, and we say for the sake of what? What are our goals? Our goals are to reduce the reduction of the number and racial disparity of youth and adults impacted by police brutality and incarceration in Ohio. To advance both short and long-term outcomes of police accountability and criminal justice reform. And we say reform, and that's that we wrestle with that. I wrestle with that back and forth because what I want right here and right now is a transformation. And we never lose sight of the fact that we understand that this system wasn't designed for us. And how the criminal justice system is shaped and how it operates was not designed for us. But we have had to learn the hard way that what we are able to do right now is get some reforms in that system as we seek transformation always. Never losing sight of what transformation looks like. Abolition, the ability to police ourselves. Those are transformations that we see. We seek all of those things to build Black power in Ohio. Our path to power. How do we get there? We know that we get there through community organizing, from doing things like we're doing tonight, coming together, building relationships and connection through community, identifying new leaders. That's our community organizing. We also know that we must get there through policy. Because yes, Aramis tells us often that it's sexy to show up at the protests. And people feel that, they feel that energy. They see their comrades, they see people taking chances and risking and putting their bodies on the line. That energizes us. But we know that the direct symbolic action only exists in organizing strength for an opportunity to mobilize the people. Because when we show up in action, one of the things that we are always conscious of is who are the leaders? Who are the new leaders on the front line? Who's that brother over there speaking out with the bullhorn? Who's that person? I've witnessed it firsthand, and it always brings me glorious joy. That person that may not have ever been to an action is willing to stand on the front line, facing the power of the state with their weapons and their bullets and their power over. We see those things. And so organizing and symbolic action always allows us an opportunity to identify new leaders and to get busy organizing, because the real work is after the action. What can we win right now in policy? So in policy, and I used to run from that because I ain't trying to sit at your table, I ain't got that to do. That was my first pushback all the way, brother. Why would they sit with them? I don't even like them. And I know they don't even like me. I did that for years. I would be so resistant to, I'm not gonna sit at your table. I'm not getting ready to come in your room. I'm gonna stand out here with my bullhorn and yell at your ass until I get tired. And then I realized that if we were ever going to get to the justice, as we say we want justice, right here, right now, it was going to have to happen in those policy conversations, in the system as they've designed it. Our other path to power is through, and we talked a lot about symbolic direct action mobilization. Mobilizing in the heat of, and Aaron, slow down a little bit before you click.
I'm not clicking them.
Look at those images up there. You may see somebody that you recognize. Look at Aaron at the State House, standing in his power. You don't have to say a word. I love pictures. How many love pictures? Why? Why do we love pictures?
That's what you're saying earlier, that we don't stop and see what we've done and what we've done, but pictures help us do that. And they also show the world what can be done. And what is being done.
Yes, yes. What can be done? Y'all hear that? What can be done and what is being done. The pictures are powerful. I don't care how many times we look at those, review those images from the civil rights movement, or from Occupy Wall Street, or from the LGBTQ movements, Stonewall. You look at those images and you don't even oftentimes have to read the caption. You can look at the faces. Look at these faces. And you can literally feel the energy of those moments. Look at the faces. Without even knowing what Aaron was saying in that moment with his hand pointed. You already know the energy. It is for the sake of what? Look at Bahira up there with the Hajab, I'm sorry, with her fist raised high, standing in her dignity. Look at the dignity. Look at the width and the depth. Teenagers standing in their power. Look at the sister. Look at her face. The pain, the struggle, all the history. What she was thinking about for the sake of what when she came out that day. Look at my brother Chima. That bullhorn, I must be heard, I will be heard. Raised high. Look at my brother there, Gina. This young man is the uncle of Henry Grant. Many of us know the murder of Henry Green. Look at him. His back is turned and you can still feel his energy. The images are powerful. And then look at this love. You don't have to say a word, just look at that power. It's raised high. The images are powerful. And so as we continue through this slide, I'm gonna try not to slow down too much more. And thank you. Thank you for sharing images. They are so powerful. I'm gonna tonight to go back to your phone and pull up your images. Pull up the images that speak to you in your power. And tag PJP. I would love for you to share them with us. Pull up your power images. Little technical difficulty.
Yeah, I think are we moving? Okay.
Sometimes it comes out of that.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
Yes.
So what?
Cool.
Okay.
We're doing that tech thing, and it's all right. So yes, for sure, pull up your power images. And then save them on your phone. And when you're feeling bit down by the oppression, go back. Look at those images and think about how you felt in that moment in your power. Think about who was standing with you. Who was there? Think about what you were there for. Carry that with you. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so again, our mission is specific issue victories and leadership development. And this is how we intend to accomplish our goals through issue victories and leadership development, enactment and implementation of legislative reforms, transformational change reflected in the civic fabric in our city and in our state. That's our mission. That's how we will accomplish those goals. Next slide, please. People's Justice Project's campaigns over the years since our founding and our victories have been these. And what we talked about earlier is reminding ourselves what we won. What have we won as an organization? We've heard about our mission and our vision, but how did we get to a win? And what were those wins? In the spring of 2015, in our founding, we began doing voter registration. We launched a statewide voter registration program that focused on registering communities who have low voter turnout. In our first year, we registered 15,000 new voters here in Franklin County. And we're very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. Yeah, celebrate. There you go. Yeah. That because it allowed us the opportunity to hear from and connect with the people on the ground. We went into communities, see the image there at the top. We went into Black communities and Black neighborhoods, and we had real conversations with people that did not see themselves in civic engagement and voter registration. We learned very quickly that many people like myself, formerly incarcerated, didn't even know that they had the right to vote here in Ohio, even though it was mind-blowing for us to learn that many formerly incarcerated people believe that if they have a felony in Ohio, they cannot vote. And so that energy from allowing folks to know you were free in that. You step out the institution, you regain your right to vote. The only thing you have to do is register. So we began doing voter registration. Imagine if we raised 15,000 new voters in Franklin County, how many conversations that translates to. Imagine that. So we were already beginning to build movement and momentum because we were talking to the people. In 2016, Henry Green and Tyree King You see the images here, were murdered at the hands of police here in Columbus, Ohio. Murdered. Now imagine being a new organization focused in the Black community, led by Black folks. Brought into a conversation because we knew we had to be in a conversation about how do we get justice for these two young men. It propelled us into that conversation. And why we knew it was necessary, because we, every day being Black in America, are policed. Me being formerly incarcerated, understood the violence and the trauma of policing. Us having all these conversations with people in communities, we understood the devastation of policing in neighborhoods. We were already having those conversations. Henry Green, 23, and Tyree King, 13, were both gunned down by the Columbus Police Department. Both tragic murders only months apart. Both murders gained statewide and national attention. Sadly, their killers are still free. Just in the last week, the attorneys and the family of Tyree King were in court, still seeking justice for the murder of Tyree King. And justice is still being denied. People's Justice Project's campaigns and victories. One of the other 2017 cases, which reminds us a lot currently of what's happening in Memphis and around the country. 36-year-old Jerron Thomas, a mentally ill father, having an incident, calls the medics. As directed by his doctor, Columbus Police Department shows up and they beat Jerron into a coma. Jerron passed away from his injuries days later. His family has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Columbus Police Department. We have stood in solidarity with the Thomas family and organizations fighting for justice for this family. A medical health emergency led to the death of Jerron Thomas. Think about a simple traffic stop led to the death of Tyree Nichols. Next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Why I mention Memphis when I think about these cases is we're learning that in the murder in Memphis, another strike force, summer safety initiative, whatever label they put on it, was in a neighborhood oppressing Black communities through their safety initiatives, or their rogue forces, or their gangs that terrorize our neighborhood. In Columbus in 2016, the communities called them the Jump Out Boys. For years in Columbus, if you talk to young Black men on the streets in Columbus, they would have a story of how being police jumping out of unmarked cars, harassing, terrorizing, beating, robbing people in their neighborhoods. We took that information. Actually, citizens, a brother of ours, an ally of ours, Brother Cecil Hod, actually gave young men cameras, and they began to record their interactions with police well before we start using all this video footage that we use today. And that footage was compiled and actually taken to the police chief and the mayor of the city. Citizens already had been organizing and understood the terror and oppression of police. So we were already ready with that information to take a list of demands to city council to demand that resources be invested in trauma and in healing services. We began to organize families directly impacted by police violence. We called for and demanded that resources from the Summer Safety Initiative, which is what police call it. Remember, we call it the Jump Out Boys. that resources be moved from policing into trauma response and healing. And through those demands, what we won, we were able to help the city form a Columbus Care Coalition that now responds after a violent incident to families and provide trauma resources and healing here in our city. We pushed that conversation and won that. Next slide, Aaron, I know I'm kind
You
of speed
go.
up on time.
Take your time. We got a number.
We got none but time, reclaiming our time.
Fuck out of here, right?
While thinking about police accountability, we were also still thinking about criminal justice reform. We were also still having conversations about bail reform. We were constantly, because we must be constantly, thinking about it in the conversation about what really does keep us safe, because we already understood it wasn't police. It wasn't public safety. What keeps us safe is having the things we need to be whole, to create our own liberation, and to build more power so that we can demand the things that we deserve as human beings. So with that knowledge and policy, with our national partners, our statewide partners, we launched a campaign in 2018-19. We called it Issue 1. We wanted to put criminal justice and bail reform on the ballot. And we did that. Through national partnerships, through the level of understanding of criminal justice, through community conversations, doing listening campaigns in neighborhoods. Again and again, the people told them that the thing that was most important to them was the reform of the criminal justice system. The thing that oppressed most of them was bail reform and the inability to pay or to gain back their rights. And so we put it on the ballot. With our allies, Ohio Transformation Fund, the ACLU of Ohio Faith and Public Life, and the Ohio Organizing Collaborative, we helped to collect in Ohio. You ready to clap, celebrate, because celebrate the 1 year. We helped to collect the second largest signatures in Ohio's history with our partners, and we put Issue 1 on the ballot. Yes, celebrate that. Think about it, the second largest signatures in Ohio's history. We made history and we put criminal justice reform on the ballot. It was called Issue 1. Hopefully, maybe you voted for it back in 2018-19. Unfortunately, you know the next slide, Amber's. You can see the images of out in the communities collecting signatures and talking to people. Issue 1 did not pass. None of you guys lose sight, I'm sure, of we live in Ohio, the most oppressive, conservative, roadblock and game plan legislative body there is. But we put it on the ballot. And I'm proud to say that they're still having conversations and people are still pushing the language into other bills, but we did that damn thing. One of our other projects is People's Love. Have anybody ever been to a People's Love event? Come on now. Yeah, look at that spell back there. People's Love. People's love is rooted in showing people love. It's rooted in them. I truly believe that as we build power that we can wield, we must be building more love. We must love and protect one another. We must show up for one another. One of the most beautiful things that came out of COVID that I saw when we were truly in lockdown was the mutual aid funds that popped up. People just started loving on each other. At some points, I mean, I would click on social media and there would be thousands of people back and forth with conversation about, I need this, I got this, you hungry, people start, the love. Innately in us I get tired to them, sometimes y'all bear with me, is love. Who we are is love. And so I learned, because I come from the tradition of the Black church, y'all, my grandmama knew how to love. And watching her love on people in the church and in her community, because she didn't just do it in the church. My grandmother never locked her front door, y'all. You could just open up her door and come in. She still had, to the day she died, a skeleton key. That's how old the door was, because she never knew where it was. That was the only lock on the door that she'd never used, because she was welcome. And so, if we're going to create the community and the change we seek, we must be that change. People's Justice Project, created in 2016, People's Love, a place to show love. It's rooted in showing people love and a space to heal from all the trauma that Black and brown folks endure every day and generationally. It's grounded in understanding that we must break bread with our people, must bring everyone some ribs,
No, that's
his
right.
protein and his coffee. We must break bread with our people and share space with each other. But we also want to love our community. So we did Linden City cleanups. We knew that people enjoyed activities and recreation. We did 303 back to school basketball tournaments and back to school supply drives. We collected donations and we just loved on the Linden community. That's people's love. But we wanted to create a space for folks to love on each other. And I hope as you think about your organization, you think about the movement that you're building, you think about being in coalition with People's Justice Project, that you constantly create and remind us that we must slow down and love one another. Let's talk about George Floyd Rebellion and our relationship to it. People's Justice Project worked to find legal support for people during the movement and advocated to drop charges against protesters as they were being arrested in the heat of the George Floyd rebellion here in our city. Were any of you a part of the rebellion during George Floyd? Thank you. Keep your hands up, the folks that were in the streets. Keep them up high. Look around the room. Thank you. If you would look at somebody and just tell them thank you. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you. Thank you. The sacrifices, think about it. My comrade, the sacrifice. To stand in that level of violence in that moment. Loving one another. Thank you. The sacrifices, think about what it took for my comrades to be present in the moment. Right there, the mother. Think about the sacrifice. To be present in that moment. Think about my brothers, my sons, my sisters, no labels at all. The sacrifice to be present. That people's love coming into real time, even in rebellion. During the George Floyd rebellion, and as we think about the sacrifice and the abuse that we suffered, we began to have conversation, and because of credibility and love for the organization, legal folks began to show up and help us to understand that we could fight back and we can fight them at their table through the criminal justice system. We became a lead plaintiff in a case against the Columbus Police Department, along with 23 other Columbus residents. How many of you have heard of that case? Okay, several folks. And so for those of you who have not heard of that case, We filed a class action lawsuit against police because of their violence and abuse, tyranny, and militarization of our city and our streets, and the attacks on our citizens. Again, why images are important, and it's important. One of the greatest tools we have is our cell phone, because you should always be recording the movement. The reason why we were able to win that case is because when we ask folks to share with us the videos, right here, when we ask folks to share with us the videos, you wouldn't believe what we saw. Right, people cloaked that we had with a badge and given a gun to oppress us. We filed a class action lawsuit. And what did we do? And we won. Y'all hear me? How many people know we won? Yes. We won that thing. We won. What did we win? We won a permanent injunction against the city and police. What did we win? We won. Police can no longer remove peaceful protesters from the street while peacefully protesting. And so if you've been a part of protests recently in the city, it's not by coincidence that they don't come in like they used to with the bikes and the guns and blocking the streets and pushing us and corralling us. They can no longer do that because of this lawsuit. They can no longer do what they did during the George Floyd rebellions. They can no longer use tear gas, rubber bullets, and other force on peaceful protesters. We won. The Columbus Police Department must have cameras and badges to identify themselves during protests. Part of what we experienced that they had taken their badges off. That's one of the tactics as they kill us and harm us and oppress us, is they want to hide behind the badge and the shield and the protections that they know are readily available to them, and they don't want to be identified. They can no longer do that. They must be identified. What did we win? We won. The city of Columbus will be held in contempt if any of these things are violated in the future in federal court. So we want a permanent injunction against the police, so that if any of those things happen again, they will be called back in court and held in contempt. People's Justice Project has been appointed to 2 city commissions to study policing and racism as a public health emergency, which builds upon our previous work in winning other reform recommendations as member of the Community Safety Commission. You can go to the next slide. The Columbus Community Safety Commission, and what was down there that you didn't see, one of the other things that came out of the commission, how many of you guys even remember that, the Columbus Community Safety Commission? During the calling for justice and the murder of Tyreek King and Henry Green, one of the things that we demanded was the opportunity for people affected by police violence to be in the conversation, as the Mayor Ginther called for and said he was focused on reforming the Columbus Police Department. If you remember the demands that we took to, I don't know if that's up here or Aaron's took it out, but there's an image of us taking over city council. One of the things that we did was we dropped demands.
That's coming.
We demanded the firing. Who remembers who the police chief was at that time? Kim Jacobs. We demanded the firing. Kim Jacobs had been the chief for years and never once agreed or spoke out against the abuse of police. We demanded that she be fired. And we won that. That's not on the slide, but we won that. Right after, they put another chief in place. Who remembers the chief after Jacobs?
Exactly.
Yeah, he made a name for himself. We remember him. Chief Quinlan was appointed Got it all about it. He was appointed as acting chief for a little over a year and a half. At that time, when he was appointed, Mayor Gibson formed the Guerillas Community Safety Commission, which he appointed me to serve on the commission. And for 2 years, we sat at a table. We came up with 88 recommendations on police. If you go to or type in the Columbus Community Safety Commission, you can track and see on the city's website where those, how much movement is in those 88 recommendations. I can't honestly say that many of them have been implemented. We're still fighting. Know that as we sat at that table, we continuously called on not just the firing of Kim Jacobs, but of Chief Clemens. We didn't feel like he was the chief that can move us forward. And we won in that conversation because, as you all know, we now have a new chief, right? For the first time in the city's history, we were able to push the conversation, and the city went outside of Columbus in the search of a chief. Our new chief, Brian, is from Detroit, Michigan. She's a Black female. I have sat at a table with her. I was appointed to a chief's advisory panel to sit with her. And just so that you know, because you're equipped with knowledge, the struggle continues, and we must continue to fight. I can honestly say that she understands what she is fighting and the racism. She's the first chief I've ever sat with that acknowledges that racism exists in the police department and there's change. Any of you that have been fighting as long as we have been fighting, you recognize that our fight, and I really begin to understand sitting in those rooms, our fight is with who? Anybody know? Yeah, we fight the mayor, we fight the police chiefs and police force and public safety, but who is our real fight there? This is why we're gonna keep having these conversations. We must. We are fighting a gang of organized power that historically, not just in Columbus, but across this country, has been allowed to oppress us. We are fighting the internal order of police. The reasons why they are going to do what they do and have all the protections that they have is because they are organized enough to maintain, sustain, and uphold their power. And each year, those years that I think is, what is the contract, 2-3 years? Don't quote me, I forgot now. But those contracts come up for negotiation. And where we stand in the gap across this country is we have not developed enough power to fight for the things that we must demand and how those contracts are negotiated and what the city is willing to fight. So when they're negotiated, it's the city, the mayor's office, city attorneys, the mayor's usually not in the room, and the fraternal order of police's representations, and they fight. And what I learned the hard way, we are all human beings, and it was shocking to me to learn the hard way, is that the city and most city leadership and the city council and whoever is chief or whatever fears, and they should, the power of the other people. There are dangerous gangs in our communities that we must figure out. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. They are a dangerous gang. They have maintained and have held their power across this country. All the protections, qualified immunity, and all of them things, all of the ability as the chief for the chief to hold them accountable when they use excessive force or harm citizens or break some rule or regulation. The power to know what is in their records, that they're not thrown away. We were able to win some reform in that through the commission. All of those powers, many of the recommendations that we made in committee, in the commission, were fought against and resisted constantly by the power of the FOP. One of the powerful things that we don't put up here, but we all were in the conversation, many of you were in the conversation, in the heat of coming out of the George Floyd rebellions, was we were able to put here in Columbus a citizens review board on the ballot. How many remember that? And it passed by over 75% of the vote in our city. which says that people already understand what we need. But right now, as we speak today, the folks in that room are fighting for anonymity and the power that we thought they had when we voted for that issue. And that's why we must stay woke. Because we have to protect the wins. Yes, we must celebrate them. We must celebrate the wins. But the struggle continues. And we must keep organizing. We must keep organizing. We must find opportunities like tonight to come together and think about what we can do next together. How many are committed to justice? Whatever it looks like, how many are committed to justice? I see that fist, come on, give it to me. Yeah, we must. Y'all heard me say, so y'all can imagine what my age is. I don't mind saying I'm 61 years old. I'll be 62 this year. And all my life, I've been committed to justice. Why? One, because I know that I deserve it. I demand it. But every day, as a mother and a grandmother and a great-grandmother, I'm thinking about the next generation. They deserve it. We have to create the world that we see. And if it's in the lane, your lane may not be police accountability. Your lane may not be criminal justice reform. But there is room and there's a place for you still in this movement. Your lane may just be, all I want to do is just love on people. And so sign me up for people's love. Matter of fact, let me lead it. That may be your lane. Your lane may be mutual aid, and I just love being able to provide or to help identify how do I meet a basic need of a human being, for food, for shelter, clothing. That may be your role to play in the movement. You may be just here because you are so pissed off you can't take it no more. You don't know what to do. And you found comfort in just coming together. And that's okay and welcome here. We said today, one of the things that when I meet with a mother that has lost a loved one or a child, and I look in their eyes and see that pain, and I hug them, and I feel that pain. One of the things that I often try to leave with them is the belief in knowing that you can turn, because I've had to do it, and many of you have had to do it. You have the ability and the power to turn your pain into purpose.
Oh, that's it.
We talked about as we opened, your commitment can be in the purpose of creating a better world for the next generation, for yourself, and for your community. There's so much purpose in that. Tonight, we're gonna go home, and some of you, I haven't seen anybody do it tonight, so I thank y'all for that, because I'm always on your computer or on your phone. We're gonna go home, we're gonna leave here, and we're gonna see those images of the brutal murder of the young man in Memphis. And we're gonna be snatched back into those feelings and that pain. But I want you to carry, as you get caught up on that. I know I looked when I was on my way over here, they were saying they were gonna come out at 7 o'clock or soon. I don't know if they're out. And I just wish that I could say to everybody that would look at those images, especially Black people, because we've seen that pain, we've seen the mother's tears, we felt the pain and the emotion of another young Black man gunned down at the hands of police, murdered at the hands of police. I want you to remember what we opened up with your length as you absorb all that. Your width, your depth, and your commitment. And I want you to pray. If you believe in prayer, You may not believe in the idea of prayer. You may believe in just sending your energy, your positive vibe. You may just believe in centering your intentions on what families are going through right now. But I would ask that you center that families in the city of Memphis and Atlanta as we go through these next few days. We are going to prepare for a break. First of all, thank you so much for leading me in. Thank you so much for allowing me to feel welcome. And let's just breathe. That all of that is heavy. It's heavy. But don't lose sight of we have power. The things that we face, we have won. We will win. We will win. We are winning. We are always winning. And yes, the contradiction of all that stuff that we see around us sometimes can paralyze us and you don't even know what to do. But know that we are winning. We are winning. We are enough. Everything we need, we already have. We just try to get connected to it. And then we have the blueprint of those that have come before. So with that, we are going to break, how many, 5? We're a little housekeeping. Again, thank you guys so much. I love y'all. Just a little housekeeping. The bathrooms are through this hallway here. Our beautiful host back here, raise your hand, baby. This is their beautiful space. And real quick, just tell them what the space is. What's all this love? Heidi, I keep saying Heidi, I'm sorry. Say it.
And this is the PJP Center, which is actually owned and operated by the Woodman Area Agency Village Partnership, which is a nonprofit center. And they also have another goal where building power and providing resources and community arts and wellness through our mission. And we have a food pantry in the garage. We meet here every Sunday from 10 to noon. When anything along can come, and we can do what it is during community and programs throughout the year, of course, all kinds of programs and months. And that's
Heidi. I love Heidi, thank you. I don't know where Heather stuck in my mind. But so this is the second time we've been so fortunate and blessed to use this space. And so we're always grateful for so much love and relationship and standing shoulder to shoulder. And we're so grateful for this beautiful space. So again, we're gonna take a 5-minute break if you need to go to the bathroom. There's also some water if you need water.
For anything, got snack.
Oh, and there's snacks. Yeah, there's snacks and water, the refreshments, and we'll be back in 5. So if you have not already joined our young.
Where's my partner?
It's 2 bucks.
You need 2 bucks.
It's
We good to go. You good to go, T?
Yep.
All right. Thank you again for coming out to this discussion. Considering the current developments in the current board of the United States, Tammy is well versed in centering us every time. We must center ourselves as we engage, not only in discussion, but also in struggle. And oftentimes we say in our organization, there's no permanent victories. There's only continuous and glorious struggle. Thus, the governments in Memphis, we were on calls today, trying to figure out next steps, how to respond, if we respond. And one of the key things we said through this project is that we must remain disciplined, focused. We have the opportunity to lead here. Sammy did say too, in this city, we experienced a lot of the contradictions. The process of development of an organization where we are clear now. Question and what we do. Organization. And one of the primary things about power is that we have to understand power, not be so afraid to say that we have power. Primary thing is to define it and what it looks like as a people. So this is this discussion. Emeritus, oh yeah, Emeritus. Sundiata, he, him, that motherfucker, I didn't want to call him. Executive director of this project. We're based currently in Columbus. I would go through the whole thing, but Tammy already did all that good shit. So but essentially, this discussion of power is probably the most important discussion we do in organization, because what defines our organization. That's how we show up in power. So you will see nuances here where I will discuss what is power, how do we wield it primarily, but also a theoretical position of materialism and idealism and those contradictions and what it was operate and organize in the real world. Because what governs the world is power. Yeah, that's it. So power. Yeah, so I wrote here in this book, and people are asking for it, I'm rewriting it, so stop asking. But there are certain quotes that people resonated with over the years, so I pulled them out and put them in the PowerPoint. So right here, we're saying that the local organizer are historical agents that primarily operate with philosophy of action, not a philosophy of philosophy. I mean, it's been all day philosophizing about everything. You ever know those academics are there? They're talking about like, hello, well, and we're outside coming with the conclusions in real time, in the real world, to build power. That's what we do. That's what you do. That's what y'all do in real time. Could be wrong, but you know. So what is power? So Sammy discussed a lot of our history. And personally, there was this moment in our organizing where I was clear what power looks like. And it was, so she talked about the takeover of city council. Not a lot of people know that was an accident. You know, but this is how we understood power, and this is where I got it from. So essentially, so when Henry Green and Tyrone King were murdered, people just surprised were organizing extensively for about a year and a half. I mean, like the pulse of the street was real. The anticipation and also the excitement of new organizations doing things. It was never done in Columbus like direct actions every weekend, community conversations, press conferences. We had churches, institutions organized. You saw it, you stood outside with me that one time. He was like, oh, yes, we had them on lock. Because we were at the point in history where there was OSA, PJP, other organizers who were all collectively together doing the dope shit. And so we're just building a lot of power. So eventually, when they were murdered, we tested it. And as it quantified itself, there are these moments where we just follow the pulse of where the oil was going. And so, to be very clear, the council wasn't on target at first. This wasn't what we were trying to get until we found out about the safety initiative. Then there was discussions in the organization and, well, how do we transform this or change this policy? Thus, there is meetings we have with council, and this is the learning experience where I learned what I was about. I didn't care about none of what they're talking about. But the team did. They were negotiating back and forth around the budgets and stuff like that. And Tammy, thank you for being here. I probably not remember this all the way through because I need your help. So we're in a meeting with council, and the ladies, the girls, were going back and forth with people from council about the budget. And I'm just sitting there. This is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? These brothers are dead, and we're having this discussion. So it's weird. And so eventually got to a point where we left, banged out, and then got in the car. We went to the office, and they had the helicopter following us. Like literally above us at the office, with the motorcycle, whatever, you know, or something like that. Then that was the moment we decided to take over. So we went into the office and we started plotting, and there were actors in the room. Surge, PJP, OSA, UU, other groups were in the room plotting with us. And so the day came when we had to do the action. So this is my perspective of what I saw. I had no idea all those folks were gonna show up. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy. We had Akron, Cleveland, Cincy, Dayton, Northeast Ohio, East Liverpool, in the building, converging council. Going to there, and then you have to show the IDs and stuff. That lady was not Marshawn's aunt. She knew who she was. She's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, guys doing you know what I mean? Like, it's real talk, it really happened. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? But this is our friends. So we all go up in there, and so you know how council chamber looks like it's from 1944, right? So it's like wood and smells old, and like, you know, not even like churchy old. It's just like things happen here. You know what I'm saying? So we go in, and you know, we're in front, and then as you look up, and then it was like standing room only. It was like the whole Rapids was full. We was down the back on the bottom side was full with the crews, and I'm bugging like, yo, this is about to be. We've seen this before. It's about to be something, right? But I didn't know how it was going to look. So, mine at the same time was that brother Calvin. No, Colin Kaepernick. Yeah, he's doing the knee thing. This is where you understand consciousness of organization, also conscious of struggle. So as he's doing that, we're in the building, and then council comes in. And they come in, do the little sit around, introduce themselves, and they start doing pledge. I swear to God. Consciously, I look at Amber to my left, Amber go, boom, right knee. Everybody was like, the whole entire building went on their knee. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. I'm like, yo, it's crazy, you know. And Amber has a fist up, everyone has a fist up, and you just feel it, like, oh, they're about to get the business today. You know what I mean? So they got done with the whole pledge, and we get up, and if I remember this correctly, please correct me. One of the council members starts just talking, and then I swear to you, I look, I see Amber having that face she gets. You know, I'm like, oh, let's say something. And she goes, safety for him, with the little bitty voice she had. And then everybody in the building started saying it, like, safety for who? Take a knee for Tyree. And I'm like, hitting them comms, like, Tom, go down here, come on, Twitter, go on Twitter, before there was live stream. So it was like trying to figure out how we're gonna do this. And then out of nowhere, people are coming down, you know what I'm saying? Going up front, they had banners. I don't remember that being part of the plan. I don't even know how that got in there. Dude, I don't know, but it was there. And there were people that I didn't know who were there that I now know who were there up front. I'm handling my business, the Twitters, the Facebooks, and the comms coming down. I'm looking at James like, yo, this is crazy, you know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, this little woman to my left comes down, jumps on the table on a sanctuary. And we didn't know who the hell that was. We were like, what the? And Hannah gets up there, boom. Stop, kept going ham. I mean, if y'all would have been there and saw that, I knew at that moment we changed the conditions at that particular moment. Because she got up on that table and told them the business. I'm talking curse words, the whole, you know what I mean? Like, she did Hannah in front of everybody and was like doing the things. And actually, I told her this. It was like, that's the moment when I realized we had an asada in Combs. We got an asada now. You know what I'm saying? Boom. And then you see that photo of her going like this. She was really doing that. I was worried she was gonna fall because she was on top of the table. And then some random priest rolled up on him. And she giving him the business too, like what? You know what I'm saying? But as it's happening, you know, eventually council leave the chambers, right? They got spooked. Pull out, we still doing it. I give team a look, the squad a look, film the pulse. Pigs come in, all right, we can hold it down a bit more, you know what I'm saying? And you get a sense when you need to move, right? And so I'm feeling it, I'm like, all right, we did it. All right, move the Tam, let's get about here. You know what I'm saying? Tam's like, bing, and we all go out, right? Not to mention, it was spring. So it was still daylight. So like news was there. Tammy moved the girls, like boom, started media. Remember talking about media? Started media, boom, boom, get in there, and boom, 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 boom. And people were doing their chants and cheering, celebrating. People gotta feel that. They have to feel that. They have to feel that it's possible. That's what you do. Once they feel that, you're to organize it. You don't give a shit about none of that. You're like, I want you to feel that part and know you can do it. But then you get done, you bang out, part ways. I go to the crib with some of the comrades. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna be on the news, boom. No, come on, Channel 6. And it says, the leading story. Protesters take over, protest take over, the first thing you see. Like, yo, we the leading story, son? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? It's never like that. You be like, the Buckeyes, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Something happened. So we on there, and then you see T doing a thing. You also see Amber doing the thing, wrestling power. But then, all of a sudden, the students are occupying the street. We're like, wait a minute, what? Come to find out that as we were occupying city council, the Ohio State University students were doing a direct action at the same exact time. And it looked coordinated to the public. It wasn't. That's the power of organization. That is the power of raising consciousness of the people to the point where it's so ripe for revolution that you do it instinctively. You create the conditions that even if you're just leading a different way, you have enough impact consciously that another organization, another part can do the same exact thing and create the conditions that Tim was talking about, where we can win incremental development and still build organization. The only thing I really care about is power, organizing, weightlifting, and reading books. And my family, I have a family now. You know what I mean? That came really, you know what I mean? But that's really how I show up. Because I really, personally for me, I find so much joy in watching new leaders show up. You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing my home right here, like rolling down the street in the wheelchair, like, that's ill shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, though, you know what I mean? Like, that shit doesn't happen. My nigga's like, bitch, what? Boom, you know what I'm saying? That type of seeing people engaged politically. That's what gets me up in the morning, do what I do. I'm an ED. I raise money, try to, it's not fun, but I do it because that I know there was another person out there that wants to be engaged in this shit, and we know what we're doing. All right? It's about creating the condition and the container where we can be ourselves, break bread with each other. We always talk about enjoy with each other and also struggle with each other as we go through this thing called life. We just happen to do it in the flow of the life. That's good. So why? Okay. So here's the video. Now this video right here, like this changed my life. I was a young man, and I saw this clip. I was young. You know what I'm saying? This clip is kind of like, it sets up the discussion. So we're gonna watch it real quick and have some questions, comments.
Watch football all season long, live and
What?
cable free with YouTube TV.
Was that?
Try it right.
That you're smart.
A lot of people don't know
And-
this, but if you have the YouTube app on your phone, you could be using it to make upwards
Okay.
of 10.
Brother Malcolm. Brother Malcolm. He's waiting for you.
There's one, that's not the end of it. You show that fine.
YouTube TV has no hidden fees and includes unlimited DVR space.
I must emphasize at the outstart that the Honorable Elijah.
Yeah, like YouTube, I guess doesn't do what it used to do. Now, where's my slide? I did. Oops. Oh, I did. I'm new to this. Is that it right there? That it? Oh. Can you do that? Can you help me with that? I have no idea what I just did. Sorry, I'm new to this thing called Zoom. I'm old school. People come. You know, you put a projector out. That's what we have to. That's what we thought it was. You know what I'm saying? No, it's a big world. You know, the other day, I was in the community and they called me an elder. And I was like, what did you just call me? You know what I'm saying? Because there's some things that we would do, how we organize. We would talk to people, we knew who was coming, how they were coming, how they was coming, we knew that who was going to be there. Where it was 80 people or 4 people, we knew exactly who was going to be in the room. That's what organizing was. You know, you had to literally talk to a ton of people just to get 50 people. And even now you have all the technology and Zooms and it sound like Tammy over here. But I'm an elder apparently. Okay with that. So at the end of the video, there's a part where the pig says, that's too much power for one man to have. And then why I showed that video, I remember being a young man, and I didn't see, I'm from an era where my cousins and them would rock their medallion hats, and when Spike dropped the joint, it was a thing. It was like, yo, my dad would let me see it, but like, you know what I'm saying? It was the thing. So when I finally got to see the film, I understood why it hit the street the way it did, because that one scene, I never forgot. But anyway, that's why I wanted to share that, because we're discussing power. So, can we take 2 minutes to write down a definition of power? Oh, you got that, Sam? 2 minutes. Where's my phone? We are starting. Starting now. Usually this is a breakout, but we don't have. You got this? Me and Mark. And those who are on the Zoom, can you please just share it in the chat with us, and we will like how I did that. People in the Zoom, you know what I mean? Yo, see that I'm getting yo? People in the Zoom, yeah, can you please share the definition? You share it in the space. Please.
The ability of a person or people to preserve their will, preserve their effort.
Oh. You have any on Zoom team? Got. Imagine me at the gym, I'm always looking at where my steps are going. You said over
Their environment.
environment. Time. Do we have any folks on Zoom on today? Can we have a person from Zoom, can you say their name? And
You have Ray, says power is in what people believe.
Ray. Power is in what people believe. You have another one from Zoom?
And
Leanne.
power is standing up unapologetically for what you believe for the people.
How about someone in the room? Thank you. You've been trained, so.
I said that power is I believe for a person or group that change in the society.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's power and status is a kind of given, taken, or important. That is my religion.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Power is a status given, taken, or enforced by people and individuals.
That is,
If given, taken, or enforced by people and individuals.
is it taken or forced?
Enforced or
Influence.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One, because I've read it 1,000 times, also that's great. Power is the ability to define phenomenon and make it act in your desired manner.
Why? Sometimes you gotta know who's in the room. Some of us have been trained.
Define phenomenon. And make it act
But spell, you could come on the words, but.
You gonna have to look it up together, sis.
But. They're gonna be phenomenon.
And make it act in your desired manner.
It's. Okay, come on, man.
We'll just do that.
Anybody else in the chair? Steve, what's power to you? With
I would say. Power can make great things happen, but it can also make terrible things.
all right, good thing. Yeah. We can take one more. Is that good with you, team?
Okay, one, online.
You wanna do it? Anybody online say something? All right, go ahead.
Power evolution. Be it love or hate,
Okay.
that allows someone to act.
I'll say more about that, please. Elaborate.
For using myself as an example, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I wouldn't have power over myself as a bigger person if I didn't receive the love that made me do it. And in contrast to that, the culture war and it doesn't matter, driven by hate, which gives them power to act towards whatever the agenda is.
I've never heard that before. Say it one more time. I want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying that you're able to do what you do because of the love you get from the people.
The love I see in as amongst organizers. Right, like, that's why I teach them. Right, but like, you see the fashion and.
Yeah.
They show up on a hate, so like, there's power to use the love, or to use hate.
Spot on. It's real. It's probably the realest shit I've ever heard. Like, and this, I've given these discussions many times. That's the first time I've heard someone use those concepts and it make actual sense. You know what I'm saying? Because oftentimes people talk about, pause. I'm gonna get there in a second. Pin that. But yes, all these definitions, all these ideas of power is essentially what it is. Collective love, all of that, to respond, control people's circumstances. But as an organization, as people just surprised, we define it this way. We define power scientifically as power is the capability to control the course of history, to enact collectively, including the decisions of others. And actually, it is the joining of wills, which in turn strengthens the potential to move the masses to that perceive themselves as powerless. It's that simple. It's not complicated. If we actually acted out with the masses of people collectively. That's acting. However, that is our position of power, right? Ms. Tammy, in processes of struggling together for many years as an organization, we had to hone in. Because oftentimes we had like two things, and we were just saying stuff, but we really didn't have the historical basis to actually have the confidence to really define it yet. because we were new to this. I was from another organization and we were doing different things. See? We had to come to our own conclusions as an organization acting out in the real world, thus coming with our own position and philosophy to organize the people in current history. So when we say that, this definition of Black power. So the reason why I put this here is because of, I think it was last year, my father, but he and I were talking one day, we do often, and my brother says to me, you know, hey man, what's this Black power? You say Black power, but what does it mean? You know, because he's from the 60s, but he made it clear to me, like, I'm from the 60s, but I was 8 when the assassinations of MLK happened, when the African Revolution was at its hot phase. He was an 8-year-old. So I'm like, oh, 60s doesn't mean that you were active outside. You had to be from the 40s to be adapted. So he's like, he didn't know. He would tell me stories about like seeing African people in the street, Ungawa, Black power, and all this stuff, and people active in the neighborhood doing stuff. He knew the term, but no one's defined it to him. Thus, it's easily told him, this is what it means, boom. Then I realized we should tell people what we say, you know, what we mean of Black power. Because this is essentially how we look at power as colonized people in the current force of the United States. This is how we operate. And we're gonna go into discussion in time. But it's my father that brought this. So we wrote this. When we are discussing the concept of Black power, we simply mean we are engaged in a historical process for self-determination, independence, and freedom over our own Black lives. This differentiates from the trendy term, Black Lives Matter. It's a complete difference. Because inside of Black power, there are these 3 things: self-determination, independence, and freedom over our lives. The organization, we understood quickly, Black lives cannot matter unless you have Black power. With these 3 things, that's when you see athletes and other people co-opting the term because there's no demand in it. It is a philosophical, idealistic term that means absolutely nothing. So when you go, you always wondered why you would go to like across the bridge to Clintonville and see a Biden and a Pelosi sign, and then, you know, equality here. What's that funny, the no love here? What's that sign they always have out there? What's that? Yeah, about house we believe. I'm not hating on them. I'm not in that word. But then it's confusion in front of their guard. You know what I mean? Like, whoa, all this, you know, pride flags and other flags, and you're confused. And there's philosophical idealism in that house. There's no demand within the phrase of Black power, Black Lives Matter. But when you say Black power, there's a demand in it already, power. As a whole people, we are contending with historical forces that have defined our existence, such as enslavement and colonialism. This is the foundation of our struggle. Once we were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, because at the end of the day, we're not supposed to be here in the first place. Feel that. We became a whole nother thing. This reality is what informs our demands and ultimately our struggle for liberation. In other words, power is the ultimate equalizer. There have been many times through the years where we had to struggle together as an organization to figure out what the hell we are doing. Because other outside forces were trying to dictate. When you're actively in the street organizing people with voter registration, you know what we're saying at the doors? Mississippi Chamber was saying at the doors. At the doors, we're talking about slavery. That's how we got the people to organize with us. We were engaging in conversation that made sense to the people. I didn't know at the time that we were talking about this part. It was just like, okay, mass incarceration, 13th Amendment, boom, you know what I'm saying? And it was so easy to get people in the door because we're talking about something that really meant something to our people in the street. These philosophies, these ideas do not come from my brain. This comes from being around African people in Cleveland, African people in Akron, in our own communities, Oakland. I was in Cuba. Like, this is where this comes from, talking to mad people. I'm not making this stuff up. Very, very clear. Well, I can't see what that says. Yeah, so what, okay, pause. Does that make sense to people when I say? Sorry, I don't know. So where does power come from? We know this. Organized people, organize resources. Period. However, every organization, church, political party, labor union, nonprofit, etc., need one or the other. Usually a combination of two to wield power. Thus, we must learn how to build power. The opposition, the state. Now let's be properly into what the state is. The state are those who do not elect. Remember this whole discussion around separation of church and state? Scientifically, it is because the state are the FBI, CIA, feds, cops, DEA. Those are the states. That's the state. The state is a repressive force, no matter where it is. We're going to go into the discussion about the state next discussion, but quickly. I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go into things. However, the state in opposition has a lot more resources. So we have to figure out how to build people under the beginning slides. What is binding at us? Does this make sense? You're doing that again. First of all, I want to give acknowledgement to Just and the crew. Like, stop. It's very rare that you have an organization come up from the ground like that and just catch bodies like that. That doesn't happen. And an organization that is willing to go through the process of figuring it all out. Someone supported us as we were building. We had to pass, we had to share, we're all we got in Ubuntu. You really lived that, you know? So mad respect to Just stepping out there and doing the damn thing. Because at the end of the day, organization determines everything, period. It doesn't matter your idea. It doesn't matter how many books you read. It doesn't matter how many quotes you quote. It don't matter shit if it is not active. Usually at this point, I go through a whole diagram of ideas, knowledge, base, power, dialectical relationships. Not doing that right now. It's very basic. People, in our experience, only get organized based off of two fundamental aspects: what they care about and how they act, and is it powerful? If it ain't about that part, ideas are the cheapest commodity on the block. I can go right now, to the local barbershop. Everybody got the ideas, but nobody wants to build an organization. Nobody. Because it takes the will of the organized masses to struggle together to build it. It's not, you know, it determines everything. Because market, folks, where does power come from? Again, organizing and political conscience go hand in hand. It is a science and an art. It requires a skill and the capacity to quickly choose and change forms of struggle when the material conditions deem it necessary. It is a process that requires a keen focus and examination of society's internal and external contradictions that end in building organizations which is our only defense from outside forces. In other words, organizing an internal process, you say. So when we say this part here, fundamentally what this means is that, you know how people say reactionary forces for that? Discipline them out. He's talking about discipline people, discipline organizing. We have to be, we have to have the capacity to quickly choose forms of struggle. Because Martin Luther King said that was, we can lead people into a burning house. Literally.
Say it again.
We can lead into a burning house. Because you can disorganize your base by one false move. We've done it. And you're corrected. Mao talks about criticism, self-criticism. This is very important in organization. There's no feelings. We have the minds of the long-term view. Internal and external contradictions, meaning when I say contradiction, it means the unity and conflict of opposing forces. We're going to go on that in a second. Internal, external. Speeds up and slows down internal processes. For example, we're over Memphis. The state, an external force, goes into the African community internally and murders the brother. Tyree beats him up, kills him. Sped up a process where we are here today. That's basic dialectics of how I see and we see the world. We're going to go there in a second. Again, Marcus Garvey tells us, he gave us the flag so you know. Marcus Garvey had the most powerful organization ever, UNIA, international. Marcus Garvey tells us a long time ago, he said to us, African or the Africans at home and abroad. He gave us the philosophy that people now know as Pan-Africanism. He says this, organization is a great power in directing the affairs of a race or nation towards a given goal. To broadly develop desires that are upmost, we must first concrete through some system of method, and there is no better way than organization. Thus, the philosophy that we always hold is that organization includes everything. How powerful you are, how many people you have to flex, that's how it works. I can go further than that. With respect to time. Again, where does power come from? Again, in order to wage effective struggle, the organization must first identify and be clear who the primary enemy or target is. The principal representative or agent of colonialism is within our communities. That is exactly what we have to do at all times. That's when we discuss the concept of examination. Strategy, tactics, how do we build? You did the prosecutor campaign, right? You hit the prosecutor. Who is the highest, who is the representative agent of colonialism in our community? We're colonized, no matter where we're located. Yes. Yeah, that's it. Because we understand the materialist worldview of power is that it functions as an ability to occupy spaces, which are territorial, ideological, political, and organizational. That is the power of the organization. Yeah. We'll keep going because it's like the time, because I know it's Friday night. This is where we want to get to. What governs the world? We're in the concept of power. there's this tension oftentimes in society where we say love what the world we want it as to be and what the world is. The tension. In our organization, we operate in how what governs the world is. We know, as being colonized people, there's power over and there's power with. The point where you can be killed and you do nothing to the mass of people. We have to operate in a sense of tension where we know who killed Casey Lister. It wasn't love or hate, it was a bullet. You understand? We know, Ms. Tammy mentioned before, that she spent time in the joint. We know where it's located and it houses African people. That's power over. Nothing to do with this over here. Idealism, you spend all day talking about it and they lead nowhere. Thus, we operate here as an organization, building power in the real world. If your philosophy is something, not something that can be made material, it is worthless. This is what distinguishes us from philosophical idealists and pseudo intellectuals that spend their whole career debating, but never come outside and do and act. This separates us from those who will sit there on panels all their whole career and make up terms. And no one in the community knows what we're talking about. BIPOC. I can't go to the bodega and be like, yo, we BIPOC, nigga. You know what I mean? Come up with ideas out of nowhere. Because they spend their whole entire time philosophizing and not to get the philosophy from the back of the people in struggle. Because they're afraid of power. Indeed, in other words, the word idealism and metaphysics are the easiest thing in the world because people can talk as much nonsense as they like without basing on objective reality or having to test it against reality. It's safe. Nobody wants to come outside with it because you can stay all day on the block and talk about extra things. You know how in the community you have the African people over there talking about, you know, we're the ancient Hebrews. It don't mean nothing. What?
On the same corners.
Same thing, talking about nothing, and it shoulda, woulda, coulda, and ain't sitting there. It's the easiest thing in the world. To act in that space. You don't have to come outside and see yourself in the real time in the real world. Materialism and dialectics, on the other hand, need effort. That's an organization, that's how we build. They must be based on and tested by objective reality. So Ms. Tammy talked about earlier, the CARE Coalition. We won that campaign and then we learned how the CARE Coalition is actually doing things and it quantified our struggle to a high level of consciousness, where we are right now. I couldn't have wrote this in 2015. Does it make sense? I had to go outside with the people, struggle, think, read, struggle, think, read, get my ass kicked. You know what I'm saying? You know, all the things to come here to this conclusion. Because it must be based on and tested in objective reality. Unless one makes the effort, one is liable to submit to idealism and metaphysics. That's why there's so many churches on the block. I remember organizing Cleveland with Fred on 105. Fred's like, yo, there's like 16 churches on 105. We gotta go to the church and we gotta talk to ministers. They're like, how are there so many churches on this one street? Because it's the easiest thing to talk in circles. When you come outside, you have to see the real world. How does this make sense? Because materialism teaches us that the world is tangible, knowledgeable, and it can be experienced through the senses. It teaches us that all existing phenomena result from material causes that come from being developed in passive way according to the laws of motion and matter. In other words, the material world is always primary. The tree's there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's there. Some people will spend a whole career talking about who defines the tree, who defines what the tree is. See, idealism. Materialism informs us that the material world is primary. It is objective reality that exists independently from the mind. It is there, and it will of individuals. It does not require the permission of gods or important persons to exist. It's going to be there regardless. Good. The late materialism is understanding that all things are in constant contradiction, means of external and internal forces. These contradictions, unity and conflict of opposing forces, are found in unity of opposites. For example, there's both unity and conflict of the dialectic nature of the oppressed and the oppressor, the colonized and the colonizer. Thus, our struggle to create a better world is through building power in the real world. That was a lot of jargon. In any words, we know that we are oppressed. But sometimes idealism will try to lump you all into one. You see on MSNBC and CNN, they'll say, what they call us at one time, Ms. Tammy? They called us low propensity voters. They mean Black people. They say terms like everyone on this, everybody in it, every zip code deserved. But it's only African people they're talking about. We're talking about education in schools. They say everybody deserves a good education. They mean Black people. You see? You're at the bottom. They won't say it in a word of idealism, even racism is idealism. You never hear us say white supremacy. You're assuming that the African working class is more consumed with white supremacy than power. As soon as you say white supremacy, art reinforces it in the link. Immediately. Do you want to be equal to that? Genocide, slavery. No. We're trying to create a better world. You're assuming that the so-called victims of white supremacy is consumed by the very notion that it exists. Go to the block right now and say that. See if you will walk out with your legs or they know what you've been talking about. We do that. We talk to African people. Like, it's like, you're bringing, even the concept of racism, is whiteness in the conversation we're talking about. It's an ultimate equalizer. In fact, Black power in and of itself, by definition, makes racism non-avoidable. Because you're not discussing what's in white people's heads. Not even there. You can come into the room as white and we not look at you like that. We are operating power. Period. You know what I'm saying? That's how PJP walks in the room with power. Like what? I don't care about none of that. How can we build it in the real world? That's Black power. It makes it the same. I know you know what makes sense. I talk to you every day. But what is wrong with power? So what do you think about when you hear the word power? Without me saying anything, like, what do you think about? I'm just curious. Go ahead, Heidi.
I associated, the first one is the these pictures in violence.
Yes.
And the way the power has been distorted.
Rush to make you out. Anything else? Yes. Yeah, that's that simple. Anything else? Or, go ahead, Sam.
Definitely these things that have been lifted, but I am constantly thinking about power there. And how do we build collective power? And because organization is always primary, my thought is always power with. How do I get in relationship with other folks so we can build more power? You know, that's how the progression of my growth and development has gotten to recognizing that all these things are with us. But it's a distraction. And as Aaron was saying, why I've learned not to stay focused on white supremacy and racism and patriarchy, because that keeps me stuck trying to understand and learn the new tricks of their trade. I've learned that as I continue thinking about how do we build more power there, then it allows me not to feed into and get so distracted by that shit.
Would you like to be known as powerful? Yeah, you don't have to. Anisha.
First question, I feel like before I started working with people, you were like, yeah, use the hashtag Black Power Matters. I'm like, okay. Because I think that power as what it is perceived right now is not a good thing, like the connotation feels like a bad thing. I think that's why people are scared when they hear us say Black Power matters. Because on the other side, they're like, well, if they want the power that we have, that means they want to use us, but what means then we can't let that happen. So it feels like a scary word. Don't really understand the implication of power.
I'm gonna leave it right there because this goes right into where we're going. Thank you for saying that. Does anyone have anything to add? No. But man, they're gonna be like, yo, they keep going. Now, pause for real. Why does it serve people in power for us to have negative connotations of power?
So we don't see it.
Accuse powerless,
So we don't see
so we don't seek it. What's that term you always hear about, Ms. Tammy? You always say power corrupts absolutely, whatever the hell. Who's telling you that? The colonizer, the person who has power over you. They will exercise their power with impunity and try to convince you and coerce you and pacify you. No, you can't. How? We got it. And then blast you real quick on the street, incarcerate you while they put crack into your community. You know what I'm saying? Go in there and say, oh, that was you? Nah, we're taking all that shit. Do you hear what that police chief just said today? They talked about it being inhuman. Well, she literally just said, African men are inhuman. That's what she actually was talking about. They dehumanize you. I want you to go. You. So in the way we do. You know. I mean, however, we talk about Black power here, right? We're talking about Black power. Why am I doing this? What am I doing? Did I do something? Okay. What does that say? Can we think about a minute? Like, can someone share a story when power was used against you? That's PG or R? You don't have to if you don't feel comfortable. It's fine. I can do it. No? But
I guess I'm kind of dealing with the situation now, and I think about it because in my head, the person who's power needs to use somebody who is well African, but they still were the way that they were operating So I was working for a restaurant that's owned by another Black person, and they, basically what they did was wage cut. And so I was working and I didn't get paid for 2 paychecks. And coming into the situation, you know, you think like, I'm gonna be working with somebody, working for someone who is, Black too. But then you realize that their ideology is capitalist and they're not really thinking about that. They're thinking about the power they have over you and you're just like a worker for them. So they don't really care about you, their money. They just want everything for them. So that's what that came to my mind.
Exploitation. Sorry, but. Did you identify? You identified. Sorry. Report. Anyone else?
So before I quit my corporate job, my former manager, apparently had put something on, she had to put it on everyone's computer to keep track of what we were doing during the day. Because, you know, I came in telling them I had to be on the side and that I would be there for like max 5 years and like my name. So she had pulled me aside one day, basically like insinuating that because I was working on other things that I was going to be working in. So I asked her, okay, well, is anything I'm doing outside of work impacting my performance? And she's like, well, no. But, you know, I just don't want you to like work on other stuff. Mind you, we had like some people take all maternity leave when they're like adopting dogs. But like anytime I took PTO to like go sleep somewhere, there was always like a pushback. So eventually, how I kind of like got out of that was the next I slept on it. And my grandma was just like, I mean, you have a degree, so quit, do your own thing, and it's work out, just get another job. So I went in the next day, basically, and told her I was quitting. And she was like, well, what are you gonna do about health insurance?
Sorry, I keep looking. That's an example of you feeling power over you. Then you end up building your own power, say, Paul, you can contract me. Independent, Black power. You know what I mean? Like that's how you, so respect the time. Am I doing this wrong? The problem with power is that it is oftentimes used against us unilaterally. Using the slide, I think I took it off. I know how far we go with it. But the colonialism is power over. There's the whole ideology behind that. All of it. Exploitation. Even those who are colonized can execute the same ideology as the colonizer and assume that they're doing the bidding of the people. Then you get your ass kicked by the state in Memphis. Then you're left by yourself, alone. This is what it is. However, when we talk about, keep pushing that, I'm sorry. When we talk about Black power, we're talking about the problem with power. We fail we fail to differentiate the two forms of power. We're talking about black power. I didn't change this here because I didn't have to. But at the end of the day, we have unilateral power, power over, domination, violence. Who actually gets to tell you what violence is? Who can define it for you? Usually it's oftentimes the colonizer, the colonial institution, the colonial bourgeoisie. They're telling you how you can even define it. Except the fact that Cesare Reed was murked on the west side, except that, you know. But hold on, you can't run up in a speedway to get cash out because you lost your job, because all the jobs are going overseas. So you go out there and sell dope, making a rational decision during a irrational system, and you get 10 to 7. They need to define it for you. Control, exclusion, immobile hierarchies. Examples: police, judiciary, employers, teachers, the different pedagogy. We're talking about, relational power, power with is the only way we can win. Informed consent. Participatory. Inclusion. Not inclusion like at the university when they say diversity and inclusion. No, we're talking about true debate and conversation to build a higher form of consciousness together in organization. I'm not talking about inclusion in the sense of include by the expense of something else. As long as you keep colonial domination in the conversation, you're included. Make sense? Openness, public, accountability. We have a bunch of examples of that. The one thing that makes PJP very interesting in the state, tell you what it is that I'm accountable to Tammy. You can go anywhere in the state. EDs really aren't accountable onto the board. I'm accountable to this team. The board, they're my friends. But they know I gotta go through Tammy before I do. You don't have that power with the board. You know what I mean? Like Tammy's the one I'm accountable to. You know what I'm saying? Does this make sense? Accountability, like that's really how we function as a team, right? We're like a team group. Who are we? Partners. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're accountable to each other. I don't know how many times Tammy check me on moves or calm me down, or I call it on the phone to cry and bugging, or you know, he calls me and goes off. You know, like there's a trust there, accountability, openness with each other through organization. That's how we have to get to other organs of people. That's how we have to build. Because essentially, we're going back to Black power. Self-determination and independent organization is the highest form of democracy. We're building power to govern ourselves and our own affairs being the overarching goal. We talked about before about these incremental developments and reforms, whatever. In the core of the organization, we're trying to figure out how we can govern ourselves and our own affairs in this process, where we can have the freedom to produce and reproduce life. We saw a situation just this year where the state said to the whole United States, we're controlling your ability to produce life and reproduce. That is real freedom. That's the ability of the state to actually tell you how you even control your own body. We gotta get that back. I watched my reproductive rights organizing crews work so hard over many years. Telling us they're coming. And I believe everything they say. But you know what they're contending oftentimes against? Colonialism. They're dealing with issue-based force oftentimes, where they can't even get them to move to see the real picture. But they just swoop in and say, no, I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna fucking do it. You can't even, we're gonna destroy everything. All right? We gotta get back to the point where we got freedom to produce and produce life, which ultimately grows from the spirit and the souls of the organized masses. That's all these photos you were seeing. This is Tammy with, what's this, the occupation of the airport, Muslim ban, like organized Muslim, there's stuff. This is all process of direct action, organizing, mobilizing, and finding levels of consciousness becomes this clear view of what we're talking about. This is what the activities are. That's why we cannot have discussions that much with people who are saying this whole debate about reform revolution. It's like, no, we're actors in history. We don't have the time to have debates with you. We're outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, we here. Does that make sense? You come with these all the time. I know you do. You know what I'm saying? Trying to have debates about who's more this and who's more that. Sorry, we outside. Again, because daily it is becoming increasingly clear that the crisis of ruling class is plunging to a new level of deterioration. This is international, it's even local, and even United States. This is a critical point in history, where we must be inspired to intensify our struggle. We must reestablish our position of self-determination and governance over our own lives. We must reaffirm that to people that with mass action, that freedom is coming tomorrow. This is why we always emphasize for wins, we are always winning. Period. We destroy slavery. We destroy colonialism. Don't let them try to tell you the story of the colonizers that helped us. Once we were kidnapped from Africa, it was on. I got the books, you know, once they came and kidnapped us, that is where the struggle originated. It had nothing to do with what happened in the Western Hemisphere. It has nothing to do with the United States. That is the pinpoint of it. And we have been winning ever since. Freedom is coming tomorrow. That's why I always have hope. That's why we're always optimistic. I'm not bugging. You know what I'm saying? That's why you never see a really reactive thing. You know? We have to reaffirm that we're at this critical point, especially in our town. We have just you all showing up. Remember, I always emphasize to people, it was just us. PJP. Literally. Like, I mean, there were other actors. But it was the People's Justice Project that was leading. It's so glorious to get to the point where we see other stepping in. And one of the most glorious things when I saw the PSL, who was a tall person? Was that a tall person?
Shindy?
What's the name?
Shindy?
Shindy?
Shindy.
Shindy. Shindy. Yeah. I'm seeing them fucking like everywhere. And I'm like, yo, and like, they're like, is this good? Is this good? Yes. You know what I mean? Had a whole bunch of people out on the street. And I'm like, yeah, this is what it's all about. See, my man's, yo, what's going on that one? Yo, I'm like, Oh, good, I'll see y'all later. You know what I'm saying? Like, and bang out. Cause it gives you a sense of like, we're here now. We're gonna be all right. You know what I'm saying? Collective. This is Black power. This is what we mean by Black power. We mean, when we say in discussions, to enter back into humanity, you must follow the direct leadership of the capital class and oppressed people. That's what we mean. Because we're talking about collectivism. We're talking about the philosophy of Africa. Because we are bombarded with colonial domination, capitalist mindsets. Come home, you must follow, you must oppressed. Collectively, we believe this. The occupation of City Hall wasn't just African people. It was PJP leading, of course, but OSA, White, Surge, UU, ISO was there. You know what I mean? There was a whole bunch of groups in the building under the direct leadership of the African class. No one owned nothing. You can never come to ideas of African people. You can't come up with something better than freedom that we come up with. We're the most oppressed. Another discussion. For what? Well, we can define safety and accountability with ourselves and reframe the whole world around us. When we're accountable to each other, we can actually create a world where the whole community is accountable to us, feel safe. Well, we can define our leadership, not going to the ballot box and saying, hey, I'm gonna give you the right to rule over us and make some decisions in downtown. We can define our leadership. PJP, the people during this time period dubbed us it. I tell people all the time, when I came to this world, all I wanted to do was do dope shit with my friends and write. That was it. You know what I mean? And then eventually things worked out differently for me personally. But now we have an African organization, I'm the ED, and you know, it just happened. But it wasn't me coming in and saying, hey, I want to be a movement leader. I want to be the guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it was none of that. Actually, this stuff really irritates me. I hate standing in front of you. I'd rather be in front of my laptop, plotting, scheming, doing phone calls, bothering teas, and like talking to people on the nation. You know, plotting, getting you up, chewing. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? I'd rather do that. I find more joy in the strategy part than this part. But it's the tactic I come. But leadership, who defines leadership? Remember the developments during George Floyd, when they dubbed some people out of nowhere? and the community was like, well, oh no, these people ain't real. The people said it. They're like, no, who are these people? Real, me and Tam went back there and he like, we know what's gonna happen. People gonna respond to all y'all. You know what I'm saying? And they did. They dubbed you. Just 2.4. Leadership. For the sake of what? That is the constant question. People Justice Project is always leading me. Tammy has taught us this throughout the years. She will make sure we are always thinking that. Tammy's not coming outside. The first thing she says to you, for the sake of what? I'm not coming out here, man, for two things, Black power, or are we talking to people? Are we loving on people? Am I going to find joy? It ain't about that. You sit me in the car, I'm a different place in life, baby. If I ain't find no joy, you say we also got good. No, baby. You know what I'm saying? That for the sake of what? In our organization, we walk through it, find it, materials of the worldview, how we wield it collectively, redefining it for ourselves, the process of how we define it in struggle. Well, we've been around for what, a decade now, this year? Now it's more clear to us. It may change in 2 years. Based off the material conditions. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know. Well, now let me tell you about revolution. Point to red. So people think that revolution can only be made by a few people. Those are the civil rights reenactors. Those are the guys you see on TV, like today. Suits, ties, and bringing up something that no one really, historically doesn't make any sense. If you've been outside. You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you actually talking to? You're not talking to us. No. Revolution can only be made by all the people. Inclusion, diversity, collectivism. Therefore, if you're, and you can see here in this quote, they're not talking about political ideology here. And this is quoting to Ray now. You know what I'm saying? Most legit personality. Of course, we know who he is, you know, where his philosophy comes from. But he never, you read his books, he never emphasizes really a political ideology. He's talking about organizing revolution with a consensus. Thus, therefore, if you are serious about revolution, you have to talk about organizing the masses. If you want reform, you talk about mobilizing masses. Do that. Mobilizing influence. Organization seeks power. Period. No matter where you are. At the end of the day, organization determines everything. You know, even with development with, we know this, like with SNCC, or SCLC, King's strategy was basically just go in, agitate, get a policy done, and move. That was his whole strategy. Until he had to continue organization. Do you know who King's organization is? Exactly. You know who he is. Who's the most popular organization in the United States that led revolution? Who is the most popular organization that we know that led revolution in the United States? In current, who? Exactly. You know the organization. Way later. Later.
Later, King worked for.
He created it. So King, they're not. So once King had to contend with organizations. So during the American March, sorry, I missed that. But during the American March, when America was shot, he was doing the whole march, he was shot in the leg, right? There's that famous march with Marshall. And I know the organizer who was there. He says to me, while they're doing it, SNCC was already in Mississippi organizing people to vote. They were already there and they were dropping Black power in communities. They were organizing. There's the contention that was happening with SNCC and SCLC. So while they're doing the joint, Google on YouTube, this famous situation where you see King and then Sophie Carmichael be interviewed. King talking about it's his position. Sophie saying, well, but organizing and power, it's talking about, you see the dialect relationship coming together in contradiction. Then you get hit by the Klan. And then my professor tells me they had a meeting. They're gonna drop Black power. So they're like, nah, man, no, I don't know. He ain't gonna fuck with that shit. You know what I'm saying? Now we got 200 good people here, boom, boom, boom. The true story. He said, 2 years, like, we was running out pamphlets and he had people ready. So they had a little crowd and this would be whatever. He said, so he goes up and do his thing. You notice when he's doing it, what do you want? All he was saying that, you never thought how they knew how to say it. They were already organized. Thus, King had to contend with SNCC. Because now Black power is SNCC. Now the Democratic Freedom Party, yeah, the Democratic Freedom Party was on the scene now. He had to contend with that fundamental contradiction based off of struggle from his campaign with the civil rights stuff, you know, they had to deal with New Yorkers. You know what I mean? Like, or we were from Chicago. Students who are coming into existence in political life, watching the African Revolution come into existence. Ghana is being independent. Ireland is going through struggle. Chile, Cook, everyone's going through it. This is their reality. So yes, King, worked with campaign. But the thing is, remember King as an individual. Remember Black Panthers as an organization. We want people to remember organization. That's what power is. That it? Next steps. Thank you for not getting so nervous. Yes, ma'am.
Next steps, can you touch on the lessons learned and why it's so important for us not to focus on the individual,
Yes.
but to understand the organization because that's where the will and the desires of the people are rooted in the organization. And so we forget the organization and oftentimes we cite what they were fighting for because we're so focused on the individual.
Yes, the individual. Yeah, so the individual number prime, right, the organization. The individual and organization make the organization. For example, you think these great leaders didn't have a debrief or a discussion? You think King to say anything he wanted to say? Think about it. I can't say anything I want to say. The organization is housed that way. You're accountable to your org. You know how we get down organizations, we have what meetings after meetings, more meetings. Before we have a meeting to do the meeting. You know what I'm saying? Agendas. You know what I mean? It's structured. You have a spokesperson who says things that works. We also have the strategist, the writer, the fundraiser, all collective in the organization. Because the primary thing, the organization must exist outside of its leaders. I always say this, I was gone from PJP for like 2 years. I'm still sorry for that. My bad. But I had to do that. I was gone. I was like, I can't. I had to go somewhere else. I felt something was wrong. But the team let it. It was traumatic. It's hard. Watching my crew I brought in do things without me there. I saw a bunch of mistakes. But I couldn't be there. I had to go do something else. And still, we're in what, 2023, and we're still fucking here. It's not about Aramis or TMU. It's this symbol that matters. It is the name that's in the archives. It is the young person who can go to the art museum and see our work. It is knowing that at the end of the day, you can go home and know that you didn't sit on the sidelines. You did something. And it's that organization. You know. I'm over there at the coat, over there at the thrift store, my wife, the mask on, all that. Looking for stuff. I need a desk. Over there, boom, in the building. And I see this white lady in the thrift store with the PJP t-shirt on. I know who she is. I know exactly who she is. Oh, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I go up to the lady, yo, I like your shirt. And she know what she says to me? She quoted the mission statement. You know about them? You should get involved. And I'm looking at this lady like, you have no idea I know. She knows who I am. If I took the matter, she would know. But it's like, that is what you want to do it for. It's like, okay, you want to be seen That lady went to her hamper that day and decided to go shop with her daughter with that shirt on. Man, you know how we have to go to the crib, oh, I'm wear this today. She put that shirt on. That's not so. You big, the bigger scheme of what's going on. We have hundreds of organizations in exactly the same way. I'm on calls. People make sense in different parts of the country and also in different parts of the world. Get over this. You're actors in this. That's all it is, period. Anyway, next steps. You want people to remember your name. You understand? What's that movie? Your name. That's all I care about. So, to be announced, reflecting on Memphis, we're giving a discussion with national partners next month. You guys talk about this. From Black History Month, we're going to get a discussion on Memphis, and also, I think I'm doing a discussion on power and some other stuff, and African history and something like that. That's coming up. Right now. We're on the plan sheets. African History Month discussion, BFC is coming soon. What is the state in relation to our community? That's on the February 17th. We're going to dive into actually the political economy of the state and how it reflects to African people and the current. We're going to talk about a lot of that. It's not very deep, it's just quick. What is safety? Comrades from just holding it down. You know what I mean? On the 18th. I'm more excited about these. That's going down. You're on the email list probably, so you probably get these, and they're having 2 of these. And then I know there's also, I haven't told you this yet, Ms. Tammy, but we'll talk about it. Candidate forum being announced. So one of our dear sisters who came in to struggle with some trauma, organized and make cake. That and to put into power. Of course, we're going to intervene in health. Yes. Whatever way we can. So we're going to do one of these. Make fun some of these things. But this is Ms. Hood took upon herself to do this. We were asked to help in some way possible, if we can. So we're going to help conduct a candidate forum with other candidates, but primarily this is dynamic, fierce. Yeah. So that's what we have coming up. If you please sign the sign-in sheets and all that good stuff, follow us on these platforms, but you know how we get down. Can we please stand up? Do you have the ability? No stand-up jokes. No stand-up. The do list. Sammy.
Yes.
What did we go through today?
What did we go through today? We dug into a deeper understanding of how we build and maintain power through who PJP is. And then we dived into under the leadership of our comrade airmen, really how we define power, how we build it, and what does it mean when we say Black power.
Indeed. But also, how it's collected. Correct?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Power is collected.
Power is collective. We're talking about collective.
Because we put our fingers and hands out like this. Please, look at me. What do you see, Ms. Sammy?
5 fingers.
What are they doing?
They are divided.
They're divided, not together, not equal. Once you put those digits together like this, and you put your fist up like this, things happen all over. Because now the digits are together, the power No matter where we're located, whether it's in South Africa, whether it's Ferguson, whether it's Minneapolis, Minnesota, whether it's Memphis, whether it's Ireland. Once these fists come up, things happen. The one fundamental thing of power, and I want it, and I need it. So you repeat after me. I am. And I deserve. Right here. Right now. I am somebody. And I deserve liberation. Right here. Right now. All power. All power.
All power to the people.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, yeah. All power to the people. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you. Nice.
Oh.
Wow, that's very hard.
And